Before we start, I want you to think of one person in your life right now. Someone you say yes to when you want to say no. Someone whose name appearing on your phone makes your stomach drop slightly. Someone you leave conversations with feeling smaller than when you arrived.
You have someone.
Almost everyone does. And today, we are giving you the exact English words to change that relationship. Not the general advice, the specific sentences, the phrases that protect you without destroying the connection. The language of boundaries and English that most learners have never been taught.
Because you can know English perfectly, you can pass exams, you can hold a business conversation, and still completely freeze when someone asks you to do something you do not want to do. And the reason is not your English level. It is that nobody ever gave you these specific sentences.
By the end of this episode, you will have them.
I'm Albert.
I'm Mary. LeapTalk English, B2 level, real conversation. Today, why you cannot say no in English and why it is costing you more than you think. 5 topics, word tour at the end, 8 words. Stay for topic 3 because it contains the single most powerful English sentence for protecting yourself in any relationship, and it is only 6 words long. Quick comment question right now. Can you say no easily in English, or do you say yes and then feel terrible afterwards? Tell us in the comments right now. We will read every single one.
Let's go. Topic 1. And before we give you the sentences, I want to explain why this is harder in English than it seems, because most learners think the problem is confidence, and it is not only confidence.
What is it?
It is vocabulary, specifically the vocabulary of the middle, because English has yes and English has no, but the space between them, the soft no, the delayed no, the conditional yes, the redirected no, that space has dozens of specific phrases, and without them you only have 2 options. Say yes when you mean no, or say no and feel rude.
And both of those cost you something.
Saying yes when you mean no costs you time, energy, peace of mind, and gradually your own sense of who you are. You become the person who cannot say no, and everyone knows it.
Saying no without the right language costs you the relationship, because in English, a blunt no without framing sounds cold, dismissive, and sometimes aggressive, even when the person saying it is genuinely kind.
So the middle vocabulary, the soft no, the boundary language, the redirection, that is what this episode is about.
And why people pleasers struggle most with this.
People pleaser, the English term for someone who consistently prioritizes other people's comfort over their own needs. And the people pleaser pattern in English, saying yes reflexively, apologizing before speaking, over-explaining every refusal, is one of the most exhausting and most common patterns among non-native speakers.
Because in many cultures, saying yes is politeness, it is warmth, it is relationship maintenance. And that instinct, which is a genuine and good instinct, gets transferred into English without the softening tools that make no acceptable.
And the result is a person who is kind and generous in their heart and who cannot stop saying yes to things that are draining them.
That changes today.
Vocabulary and structures worth taking. People pleaser, someone who consistently puts others' needs and comfort above their own. Reflexively, automatically, without thinking. Saying yes reflexively means the yes comes before the decision. Over-explaining, providing far more justification than the situation requires, often a sign of discomfort with the refusal itself. Draining, taking energy without giving it back. Draining relationships take more than they give. Structures worth noticing. The space between them, describing the middle ground between 2 extremes, very useful for introducing nuance in any conversation. It is not only X, it is Y. The reframe structure, acknowledging one explanation before revealing the deeper one. This is one of the most engaging ways to introduce a new idea in English conversation.
Stay with us, because in topic 3, we are giving you the exact sentences and the difference between the ones that work and the ones that make things worse.
Topic 2, and this is where the vocabulary starts, the real, specific, usable sentences.
Let me demonstrate both versions first. The same situation, 2 responses.
Go.
A colleague asks you to take on extra work when you are already overwhelmed. Version 1, no vocabulary.
Version 1, either a weak yes or blunt no. Okay, I'll try. Or no, I can't.
Both of those cost you something. Version 2, with the vocabulary.
Version 2, boundary language. I really want to help with this, and I need to be honest that I am genuinely at capacity right now. Can we look at the timeline together and see if there's a point where I can take this on properly rather than rushing it?
Same situation. The yes version made Albert agree to something he cannot do. The blunt no closed the door. The boundary version protected him, kept the relationship, and offered a real solution.
And every word in that response was learnable. So let us break down the toolkit.
The soft no sentences, every one of them learnable, every one of them natural.
I really appreciate you thinking of me. I'm not going to be able to do this one. The appreciation comes first. It softens the no. And this one implies it's situational, not a permanent refusal of the person.
I need to pass on this, but please keep me in mind for future things. The pass on, to decline something that was offered. Very natural, very professional. Pass on does not sound like rejection. It sounds like a considered decision.
That is not something I'm able to commit to right now. Commit to rather than do. Commit implies sustained effort. Saying you cannot commit is more precise than saying you cannot do it. And right now softens it. Timing rather than permanent refusal.
I have to protect my time on this one. Protect my time, one of the most powerful and most natural phrases for declining something when you are busy. It names the resource, time, and the action, protection. It is clear, it is professional, and it is completely unchallengeable.
I am going to have to say no to this one. The going to have to structure. This is the most natural English construction for a no that is regretted but firm. I'm going to have to say no. It sounds reluctant rather than cold. The reluctance is in the grammar.
That is not going to work for me. 5 words. Calm, direct, final, without aggression, without excessive explanation. That is not going to work for me. One of the most useful sentences in the English language for a clean, unchallengeable no.
And the one for when someone asks something repeatedly. I have already answered this one and my answer is the same. Very firm, very calm, very final, without raising her voice, without explaining again. I have already answered this and my answer is the same is a complete sentence that closes a repeated request permanently.
Vocabulary and structures worth taking. Pass on, to decline something offered, professional and natural. Commit to bind yourself to something requiring sustained effort. I cannot commit to is more precise than saying I cannot do. Protect my time, treating time as a resource that needs active management and defense. Unchallengeable, impossible to argue against. A clean, calm no is unchallengeable because it gives nothing to push against. Structures worth noticing. I am going to have to say no to this one. The reluctant no structure. The going to have to creates grammatical distance. It sounds like the situation is requiring the no, not just your preference. Very natural, very effective. That is not going to work for me. Store this entire sentence, 5 words. Use it in any situation where you need a clean, final, calm refusal. Stay with us, because topic 3 has the 6-word sentence that changes everything, and it is the one almost nobody knows. Topic 3, and I said before the episode, this is the one that matters most, because all the no sentences we just gave you, they work for requests, for tasks, for favors. But what about the deeper patterns? The relationships where someone consistently makes you feel guilty for having needs, where every conversation ends with you apologizing, where you leave feeling like you did something wrong, but you cannot say what.
That is a different problem, and it requires a different language.
The 6-word sentence.
What is it?
That does not work for me.
That is 5 words.
That does not work for me anymore.
6 words.
6 words. And the word anymore is doing everything. Because anymore signals a change, a shift. It says this was previously acceptable and it is no longer. It is not an accusation. It is not a complaint. It is a statement about where you are now.
And why is that different from everything else we said?
Because it does not explain. It does not justify. It does not apologize. It states. And in English, a statement without justification is one of the hardest things for a people pleaser to produce, because the instinct is always to explain, to give the other person a reason, to make the no easier for them to receive. And that does not work for me anymore refuses to do that. It places the information in the sentence and stops.
The full vocabulary of this territory. Deeper boundary language.
I am not comfortable with that. Comfortable is the key word. Not that is wrong, not that is bad. I am not comfortable. It speaks entirely from your own experience without making a judgment about the other person. Impossible to argue with. How can you be uncomfortable with something? It's your feeling.
I need you to hear me on this. The phrase before something important. I need you to hear me signals what comes next is not a request for negotiation. It is information, and I am asking you to receive it.
I am not going to discuss this further. The sentence that closes a circular argument. When someone keeps returning to the same point trying to wear you down, I am not going to discuss this further is the sentence that ends it. Calm, final, not aggressive.
I need some space from this conversation right now. The exit. When the conversation is escalating and you need to pause rather than continue. I need some space from this conversation. Not I am leaving. I need some space from this. The need frames it as self-care rather than abandonment.
I hear you, and my answer is still no. The most important sentence for the person who uses guilt as leverage. When someone is emotional about your refusal, I hear you acknowledges their feeling, and my answer is still no, maintains the boundary. The and rather than but is important. But dismisses what came before, and holds both things simultaneously. You hear them, and you are still saying no.
That is not my responsibility. The hardest sentence for a people pleaser, because the people pleaser has usually taken on responsibility for everything around them. Saying that is not my responsibility is not selfishness. It is accuracy. And in English, this sentence is completely natural and completely acceptable in the right context.
Vocabulary and structures.
Leverage, using something as a tool to gain advantage. Using guilt as leverage means using someone's guilt to pressure them into compliance. Circular argument, a conversation that keeps returning to the same point without resolution. Self-care, actions taken to preserve your own health and well-being. Framing the exit as self-care changes its meaning completely. Compliance, doing what someone else wants. The people pleaser defaults to compliance.
Structures worth noticing. I hear you and my answer is still no. The and structure rather than but. The word but erases what came before it. The word and holds both things. Both the acknowledgement and the boundary exist simultaneously. This is the most sophisticated and the most compassionate boundary sentence in English. That does not work for me anymore. 6 words. The anymore does everything. It signals change without explanation. Store it. Use it when you are ready.
We are halfway through. Stay, because topic 4 covers the most difficult boundary conversation of all, the one inside a relationship you actually love.
Topic 4. And this one, I want to be honest about, is the hardest. Because everything we have covered so far works for colleagues, for acquaintances, for people you can distance yourself from if needed.
But the hardest boundary conversations are with the people you love most. Family, close friends, a partner. The people where the relationship itself is not something you want to end, but something about the dynamic needs to change.
And the language for this is different, because it cannot be cold. It cannot be clinical. It has to carry warmth and limit simultaneously. And that, specifically, is one of the most linguistically demanding things in English.
Let me demonstrate both versions of the same conversation. A family member who calls too often and always in crisis, leaving you exhausted. Version 1, no boundary language.
I don't know what to do. Everything is falling apart.
Version 1, absorbed, no boundary. Tell me everything. I'm here. What happened? How can I help? Don't worry, we'll sort it out.
And version 2, with boundary language and love.
Version 2, warm but boundaried. I love you and I can hear that you are struggling. And I need to be honest that I am not in a good place to hold a big conversation right now. Can we speak tomorrow? I want to be fully present for you and right now I am not. Same love, different energy. And version 2 actually serves the relationship better because Albert is honest about his capacity rather than showing up depleted and resentful. The vocabulary of loving boundaries. I love you and, not I love you but. The and holds both truths, the love and the limit, together, not opposed to each other. This is the most important grammatical choice in any loving boundary sentence. I love you and I want to be fully present for you and right now I am not. The honest capacity statement, not I'm busy, not I can't. I want to be fully present for you and right now I am not. This is generous. It tells the other person, my limitation is about quality of presence, not willingness to be here. I need to be honest that, followed by the real situation. I need to be honest that I have been feeling overwhelmed by how often we are in crisis conversations. This opens the honest conversation without accusation. I need to be honest that signals what comes next is real and it is coming from a place of care. I care about this relationship, which is why I'm saying this. The meta statement, explaining that the boundary is an act of care rather than withdrawal. I care about us, which is why I am saying this instead of just pulling away. Very powerful, very natural, very necessary when the other person might misread the boundary as rejection.
I cannot keep showing up empty. One of the most honest and most human sentences in this vocabulary territory. Showing up empty, arriving without the resource to give. I cannot keep showing up empty. I cannot keep pretending I have something to offer when I have already given everything. Very raw, very real, very effective when the relationship is close enough for that level of honesty. What I need from this relationship is, followed by the specific thing. Not a complaint, not an accusation, a clear statement of need. What I need from this relationship is more breathing room between difficult conversations. Specific, owned, actionable. Vocabulary and structures. Depleted, emptied of resource. Showing up depleted means arriving without the energy or capacity you need. Resentful, feeling bitter about something unfair. Giving more than you can sustain produces resentment. Meta statement, a statement about the conversation itself rather than the topic. I care about this relationship, which is why I am saying this, is a meta statement. Capacity, the maximum amount something can contain or do. I am not in a place of capacity right now means I do not have what this conversation needs. Structure is worth noticing. I love you and. The most important grammatical pivot in loving boundary language. Replace every but in a boundary conversation with and. The conversation changes completely. I cannot keep showing up empty. The raw honesty sentence. This is the sentence that ends the pattern of overgiving. It names the reality without drama. It is impossible to argue with because it is simply true. One more topic. And it is the one that ties everything together. Stay. Topic 5. Because the no is not the end. What comes after the no? How you handle the reaction, how you stay steady, how you repair if needed.
that has its own language, and most people do not know it. The reactions you will get after a boundary, and the English for each one. Reaction 1, guilt. Someone makes you feel guilty for the no. The response, I understand this is disappointing, and I am not able to change my answer. The acknowledgement of their feeling, I understand this is disappointing, without taking responsibility for it. And the firm restatement, I am not able to change my answer. Not I won't, I am not able to. The not able to removes it from willpower into capacity. Non-negotiable, but not cold. Reaction 2, anger. Someone responds with anger to the boundary. The response, I can see you are upset. I am going to give us both some time, and we can talk about this when things are calmer. Do not engage with anger in the moment. I can see you are upset. Acknowledgement without concession. Give us both some time, not punishing them, giving space to both people. When things are calmer, naming the condition for re-engagement. Reaction 3, the silent treatment. Someone goes quiet to punish you for the no. The response, I notice you have gone quiet. I want you to know that I am still here when you are ready to talk. No chasing, no apologizing for the boundary. I notice you have gone quiet, naming the behavior without accusation. I am still here when you are ready, signaling that the relationship is not over, but also not begging. Reaction 4, they push back again. Same request, different angle. The response, I hear that you still want this, and my answer has not changed. The acknowledgement without capitulation. I hear that you still want this. They are seen, and my answer has not changed. The boundary is the same. This is the record scratch sentence, the one that ends the loop. Reaction 5, they accept it. And the response most people forget. Thank you for hearing me. 2 seconds. After someone accepts a boundary, thank you for hearing me acknowledges their grace. It keeps the relationship warm. It signals that the boundary was not a withdrawal. It was a communication, and they received it. And that matters. And the phrase for after any difficult boundary conversation, I am glad we talked about this. I am glad we talked about this. Even if it was hard, even if it was uncomfortable. I am glad we talked about this closes the conversation with the message that communication, even difficult communication, is something you value. It moves the relationship forward rather than leaving it sitting in the discomfort. Final vocabulary and structures. Concession. Giving in to a demand. Acknowledgement without concession means recognizing their feeling without changing your position. Capitulation. Surrendering to pressure. The acknowledgement without capitulation holds the boundary while still hearing the person. Record scratch. The sound of something stopping suddenly. The phrase that ends a repeated pattern. Punishing. Inflicting discomfort as a consequence. The silent treatment is punishing behavior. Structures worth noticing. I am not able to change my answer. Not able to rather than won't. The inability frame removes the decision from preference into capacity. It is final without being aggressive. Thank you for hearing me. The most underused sentence after a successful boundary. Most people give the no and never acknowledge the other person's grace in accepting it. This sentence repairs and warms simultaneously. Use it every time. 5 topics. Why saying no feels impossible in English, and why it is vocabulary, not confidence.
Word tour.
First word, boundary. A boundary is a line that marks the limits of an area. In relationships, a boundary is a limit that defines what you will and will not accept. Boundaries are not walls, they are communications. They tell another person where you end and where they begin. And setting them in English requires specific language, which is what today's episode gave you.
For example, she had never set boundaries in English before, not because she did not know what she needed, but because she did not have the sentences for it. Today, that changed. Or, boundaries protect relationships as much as they protect the person setting them. A relationship without boundaries is one where resentment accumulates silently until it damages what was once good. Repeat, boundary.
Boundary.
Next, assertive. Assertive means confident and direct in expressing your needs and opinions, not aggressive, not passive, but clear and self-assured. The assertive person says what they need without apology and without hostility. Assertiveness in English is a skill. It uses specific language and specific tone. Today's episode was a full lesson in assertiveness.
For example, she had always been assertive in her native language, clear, direct, unafraid to say what she needed. In English, she became passive, apologetic, over-explaining. The difference was not her character, it was the vocabulary. Or, assertive is not aggressive. Aggression protects through attack. Assertiveness protects through clarity. The sentences are completely different. Repeat, assertive.
Assertive. Next, passive. Passive means accepting what happens without resistance or response. Passive communication is communication that avoids direct expression. Agreeing when you disagree, saying yes when you mean no, staying silent when you need to speak. The passive pattern is exhausting and produces resentment over time. For example, he had been passive in the relationship for 2 years, saying yes to everything, absorbing everything, never naming what he needed. By the time he began to set boundaries, the resentment had accumulated for so long that the relationship had to change significantly before it could recover.
Or, passive communication feels safe because it avoids conflict. What it actually does is defer conflict, stored internally, until it surfaces as withdrawal, resentment, or collapse. Repeat. Passive.
Passive.
Next, resentment. Resentment is a feeling of bitterness or indignation at having been treated unfairly. In relationship terms, resentment is the emotion that accumulates when you consistently give more than is fair without naming it. Unchecked resentment is one of the most damaging forces in any relationship. Boundaries prevent it.
For example, the resentment had been building for months, each yes that should have been a no adding to the weight until one evening the weight was too large and everything that had been stored came out at once, much larger and much more damaging than any boundary conversation would have been. Or, resentment is what happens when you do not set boundaries. The alternative to the uncomfortable boundary conversation is the much more destructive resentment conversation. Most people choose the resentment until it is unavoidable. Repeat. Resentment.
Resentment. Next, capacity. Capacity is the maximum amount that something can contain or produce. In emotional terms, capacity is the amount of energy, attention, or care you have available at any given moment. I am at capacity is the most honest and most professional way to say you have nothing more to give. For example, she had learned to check her capacity before saying yes to anything, a 30-second internal check that had changed every conversation she had. How much do I have right now? Is this something I can genuinely offer, or am I about to give from empty? Or, capacity is not fixed. It changes with rest, with stress, with what you have already given. Knowing your capacity and communicating it honestly is the foundation of sustainable relationships. Repeat. Capacity.
Capacity.
Next, people pleaser. A people pleaser is someone who consistently prioritizes other people's comfort, needs, and approval over their own. The people pleaser pattern produces short-term harmony and long-term depletion. It is deeply rooted in fear, of rejection, of conflict, of being seen as selfish or difficult.
For example, he had been a people pleaser his whole life, the one who said yes to everything, who never caused difficulty, who everyone liked, and who, at 34, had no idea what he actually wanted, because he had spent 20 years finding out what other people wanted first. Or, people-pleasing is not generosity. Generosity comes from fullness. People-pleasing comes from fear. The difference is felt internally. One gives freely, the other gives to avoid something. Repeat. People-pleaser. People-pleaser. Next, reciprocal. Reciprocal means given or felt by each towards the other, mutual. A reciprocal relationship is one where care, effort, and consideration flow in both directions. When a relationship is not reciprocal, when one person consistently gives more than they receive, it produces the depletion and resentment that boundaries are designed to prevent. For example, she had been in the relationship for 3 years before she noticed it was not reciprocal. She initiated, she checked in, she accommodated, she adjusted. He did not. That asymmetry had a name, and naming it was the first step to addressing it. Or, reciprocity is not scorekeeping. It is not counting who did what. It is the felt sense that both people are invested, that both people are showing up. When that sense disappears, something important has changed. Repeat. Reciprocal. Reciprocal. And our final word, empower. To empower means to give someone the authority, confidence, or means to do something. In the context of today's episode, every sentence we gave you is empowering. It gives you the means to protect yourself, to communicate honestly, and to stay in relationships on terms that are sustainable for you. For example, the 6 words, "that does not work for me anymore," had empowered her in a way she had not expected. Not just in the specific situation she first used them in, but in every conversation that followed, because she knew now that the sentence existed, and knowing it existed changed how she moved through every room. Or, empowerment through language is real. When you have the words for something difficult, when you know the sentence is there, ready, available, you are no longer at the mercy of the moment. You have a choice, and choice is where everything changes. Repeat. Empower. Empower. 8 words. Boundary, assertive, passive, resentment, capacity, people pleaser, reciprocal, empower. Every one names something real about how you relate to others, and every one is a tool for relating better. This week, one practice. Take the sentence, "that does not work for me." Not even anymore yet, just "that does not work for me," and use it once, in any situation, small or large, with anyone, just once, out loud, in English. And notice what happens when the sentence comes out and the world does not end. Because the first time is the hardest, and after the first time, it gets easier, and after 10 times, it becomes yours, and after 100 times, you wonder how you ever lived without it. The words are yours now. Use them. I'm Albert.
I'm Speaker 1, LeapTalk English. Thank you for listening and for being brave enough to need these sentences. See you in the next episode. Bye, everyone. Bye.